Hello everybody and welcome. In today's video, I would like to show you everything that I made this summer season, and I think I'm right on time. Today is currently September 22nd, and so autumn has just started. But I did get a lot done this summer season, despite having a lot of ups and downs this summer season, and I thought I'd share that with you a little bit, sort of a life update. But if you're not interested in that and you'd like to skip to the makes, I will put the timestamps below so you can get straight to them. But basically, this summer was, full of highs and lows for me. First, beginning of June, I found out that I was losing my job for economic reasons, and that was really tough because I'd been in that job and in publishing for 12 years, but that job for 10, and so that was a big shift in my lifestyle and identity and work, and so that was tough, and I was out by the end of July, so not great. But I was able to go to the coast with my mother-in-law, so she had already planned a vacation, a week-long vacation along the northern coast, and she thought that she'd be able to go with friends, but no one was available at the time. And when I found out that I was going to be laid off, I also negotiated an earlier end of contract because my job was being made redundant and I didn't have much to do anymore. And so as soon as I negotiated that, I called her up and said, "I'm coming with you," because she had invited me in case I was available as well. And that was lovely. It was kind of chilly and blustery, but being near the ocean is always so healing for me, and just smelling it in the air, being in the wind, watching the waves and hearing the waves crash, that sort of thing. I was still able to go and sit on the beach and read, and that really helped. And also my mother-in-law, we get along really well. We watched a lot of movies together and read together and went for walks, and she cooks so well. So I ate well. So that was lovely. And then we were back. In July, I got difficult health news as well. Nothing serious, but that implies some pretty invasive medical procedures coming up, and that have already started for me. So that's been difficult to process mentally and physically. But then we were off on vacation, my husband and I, to the Alps by the Lac de Serpenson by the city of Gap in the southeastern corner of France. And that was gorgeous. It's a place where my husband used to go with his family when he was a kid to go camping. And so he had lots of memories from his childhood to revisit. And it was just lovely. We had all kinds of activities open to us out in the nature, hiking, swimming, and eating well, and then reconnecting with old friends, and that was lovely. And so we spent a week there. And then unfortunately, almost immediately upon returning, I was the victim of, let's say, an inappropriate act in public, and it was very unpleasant, but I'm okay. And I went to file a report with the police, and I figured that's my civil duty done. I'll just move on now. But they actually ended up arresting the individual the next day because apparently this person was known to police forces and for this behavior. It wasn't the first time. And so I was called in and asked to identify this individual by photo. I did, and they confirmed that it was in fact the person who was arrested. And then this person opted for an immediate hearing, which is a choice. So I am not very familiar with the French judicial system. It's not something that I've encountered before. And so I can't explain it very well, but basically the hearing took place a few days after I filed the police report. And I decided to attend. It wasn't obligatory for me to attend, but I wanted to see how that works. I was really stressed that day, but the funny thing is, as I was looking for the entrance to the tribunal, or I'm not even sure how to translate that in English, I've never really had a brush with the law in the past. So as I was looking for the entrance, there was someone who stopped me to say hello, and it was one of you, one of the viewers of this channel. And thank you so much for stopping and saying hi. I know that you were a little embarrassed and you felt like you were bothering me. You kept apologizing, but really it brightened my day. It was so nice to meet you. I think you mentioned your name was Colette, but I'm not sure. I'm really bad at retaining first names, and I'm really sorry. But that was so lovely. It just made the day feel so much less sinister, and I felt so much more confident walking into that hearing, like I had an ally close by. And yeah, it really helped actually. Thank you so much. And if you'd ever like to get coffee or something, I'd be happy to meet you and talk to you at further length, because I don't know very many people who sew here in Paris or around Paris, or who are interested in sewing. So if you'd like to meet up sometime, I'd be happy to. So yeah, don't hesitate to write a note in the comments below or to contact me directly via Instagram. I'd be happy to hear from you. Et n'hésite pas en français aussi. Je peux parler français aussi. So yeah, that happened. The hearing actually ended up being postponed to the end of October for technicality or technical reasons, which was a big sort of letdown. It took so much courage to go in the first place, but I think I might go again. I want to see how it works, and I don't have to participate. So yeah, there was that, and then oh man, this summer. And then I had a medical intervention that wasn't serious, but very unpleasant, and I'm still healing from it 10 days later. But I was also able to, the day after this intervention, go and visit a friend in Biarritz. So I have a friend and her partner who live in Biarritz, and they've been there for a few years now. And I visited them for a first time back in 2023 in the summertime. My friend Emily just got a new job and she was very busy, but she said to come on over anyway if I didn't mind being alone most of the time, because there was a dance festival going on, and it took place this year from the 5th to the 15th of September, and it takes place around 10 days every September. I think this was the 5th edition, and she had talked to me about it before, and I was really interested in going, and now that I don't have a job, I mean, this would have been absolutely impossible when I was working, because this season is really difficult to take time off during in publishing and foreign rights. Anyway, so I was happy to go. I booked my tickets right away, and it was the most amazing week. It was supposed to be sort of rainy and blustery, but because it's close to the coast, the temperature and the weather changed pretty quickly, and I got a good amount of sunshine. And even though the ocean was pretty agitated while I was there, it was just so beautiful. And I was able to go see dance in the park for free, rehearsals, go see shows for not too much money, or shows that were just free. I went to a ballet bar class at the Giga Bar that took place along the promenade of the main beach, or the Grande Plage of Biarritz, one Sunday, and that was just, it was free. And so it was just so, I love Biarritz. I think that it's a place that I would like to live in. If I could live anywhere, it'd be interesting to live there. I don't know, permanently, maybe temporarily, but I love that you can walk to the beach, that the beach is natural, like there aren't commerces and private beaches and private hotels on the beach. It's very natural. And it just, yeah, it makes me so happy. And yeah, that was a great week. So I've just gotten back from that. It is rainy and blustery here in Paris. It feels like fall now, and I am ready to move on to my fall projects. So before I do, and without further ado, let me show you everything that I made this summer. So I have about 11 projects to show you that I completed this summer, and then a little bit of embroidery, a little bit of cross-stitching, and then I'll show you what I'm knitting as well that I'm probably going to put down until spring, but I'll get to that in a minute. And the first project that I finished this summer was the Closet Crew Patterns Periwinkle blouse in a white linen viscose blend from Sacré Coupon. I had previously made a Sew House 7 Revel topper in this fabric, and I really loved how diaphanous and lovely it was, and I really wanted to try making this blouse as well. And because it has more of a tighter collar that doesn't really fall open as much, I wanted to make it in something see-through and diaphanous like this fabric, so that I could wear something underneath it to play with transparency, to protect my shoulders from the summer sun, and then also when I'm going into a more formal setting. I made a size 2 because it matched the best with my bust measurement, and even though my hips are wider than my average size for my bust and waist, this pattern hits at the high hip, so I didn't have to grade out for the hips. And I think it turned out really well. I think the only thing I would maybe change is the buttons, because the buttons I picked for this top are a little bit more off-white than I'd like. When I picked them out, I think that the lighting in the shop didn't really show that as well, but I think that in natural lighting it shows up pretty easily, and so yeah, that's a pretty easy thing to switch out as long as I pick buttons that are about the same size so that they can fit through the buttonholes that are already sewed into the garment. But yeah, that'll be a pretty easy fix, and in general, I love this top anyway, and I wore it a lot this summer, so I'm really happy with it. The next project that I made was an O's Patterns Brene top that I made in a Japanese cotton from Mihama in this rose gold color. And I think that this is, from what I understand, kimono fabric or traditional cotton kimono fabric. I know that kimonos are usually made in silk as well, so maybe this is more for a yukata or obi, I'm not sure. But it has a really cool texture to it, and I bought it from Mihama, which sells traditional Japanese fabric in Nippori Fabric Town in Tokyo. I think I saw on Google Maps recently that they're closed permanently, but I'm not sure, so I'll link it below if you're interested. But yeah, it's pretty cool to integrate a fabric souvenir from my trip to Tokyo for work in 2023 into my sewing now. And so yeah, I'm really happy I found a use for it. And I made a size 34 like I've made in the past. And this is one of many Brene tops that I've made because it's a really versatile, easy to wear summer top. I especially like the shape. It's not too fitted, not too loose. It's got a really lovely sort of square neckline, and it sits sort of high up on the neck, closer to the collarbones, and it really sort of displays the collarbones in a really flattering way, I think. And I really like the asymmetrical collar detail as well. I always omit the buttons that are part of the pattern. It's just personal taste. I prefer without the buttons. But yeah, I didn't change anything else, and it fits really well, and I think it works really nicely with this fabric. The only thing is, I don't have very many pieces that I can wear it with, but yeah, I'm still very happy with this top and happy that I made it. The next make that I finished is what I'm wearing now. This is the True Bias Bryn cardigan that I made in a viscose rib knit fabric in white from Minerva. And this fabric was gifted to me for free in exchange for a blog post on their website that you can go and read now if you want to read all about the details of this project. I will link that in the description if you're interested. But this project was actually something that really scared me at first, because when I got this fabric, I noticed that it was very, very elastic and not delicate, but it has a very elastic feel to it. And so I thought, this is the sort of fabric that my machine likes to eat. Just pull into the needle plate. And I wanted to be very careful not to get wavy seams at the hems. And so I did a lot of reinforcing. So the pattern instructions already plan for the button band to be interfaced, but then I also added some interfacing at the shoulder seams to keep them from stretching out. And then I also used some heat bond double-sided jersey interfacing or tape that you can iron onto your fabric and help to stabilize the hems of your knit fabrics. So it basically works as double stick tape. You iron it on and then fold the fabric over, and it helps keep your fabric in place while you stitch the hem. And it worked pretty well. The seams turned out not wavy really at all. And it's the first time I was certain that with this kind of really stretchy rib knit fabric in viscose jersey would absolutely stretch out a little bit as I was sewing it. And actually it was pretty easy to sew, and it didn't stretch out at all, even at the side seams or anything. So I'm really happy with the way that this turned out. I think that it's a super versatile pattern. You can wear it in all different kinds of ways. It reminds me a lot of the cardigan styles and knit top styles that were in fashion when I was in high school in the early 2000s, where we would wear it strategically buttoned either at the top or all the way or just around the middle as to the silhouette you wanted to create that day. I'm wearing it today with the top two buttons unbuttoned, and I'm wearing it with a sew over it silk cami that I made years ago that I absolutely love to sort of elevate the look rather than wearing it with just a cotton camisole like I would when I was 16. But yeah, I really like this cardigan. I think the only thing is True Bias patterns, the smallest size is one size larger than my bust and waist measurements if you look at the difference between sizes. And so with stretch garments, I usually don't bother with manually sizing down a hypothetical size down because that takes a lot of time. But I think that you can see it in the neckline. So it's a little bit lower than I would like. This is much too low for me. I will always put something underneath it here. but I think that it's okay. It's more of a casual top anyway. I can always wear it a little bit open or buttoned up with something underneath it for very vintage 2000s looked. And yeah, I still really love it, and I like the long sleeves. It's keeping me nice and warm on this cold, rainy, and blustery day in late September. And yeah, I'm really happy with this one. The next project I made was a True Bias Zoe tank that I made in a cotton rib knit in an aqua green color, and this was also gifted to me by Minerva in exchange for a blog post, which I'll link below. This was a project that I worked on during my summer vlog, if you'd like to see me work on that in more detail and talk about it. But this one also turned out to be a little bit loose around the neckline for me. I didn't size down this one either. I made the size 0, and it was a bit of a challenge figuring out how to shorten the straps. And in the end, so what happened was I made it, it fit just fine, but the straps were too long, and therefore it was hanging way too low in the front and the back, and so I needed to take in the straps. I also used that double stick heat bond tape to sew the straps, because you fold the straps, or to make the strap you fold the fabric in and then fold it again, if that makes any sense. And so it's really easy using heat bond tape to keep those folds together instead of pins while you're sewing it. But whenever I sew jersey, I typically use a lightning stitch on my machine, and that stitch is super useful for side seams or seams that don't require a whole lot of stretch, but that need a little bit of stretch anyway, but they're super reinforced that way. I much prefer it to a regular zigzag stitch. I think it's called the Stitch of Doom amongst the Love to Sew podcasters. And that is true for me too, because it is really hard to unpick it without destroying your fabric. And I knew that I would not be able to unpick that and shorten the straps in a sort of cleaner way without destroying the fabric. And so I decided to instead just pleat the fabric in the back of the straps where it wouldn't be as visible, and then sew it down. So it's not a clean finish. It's a little bit unfortunate, and I didn't have enough fabric to make another one because I'd already cut out another top that I'll show you just after. But yeah, it's okay. It's more of a casual piece that I would wear at home because it's still a little bit too booby for me to feel comfortable going out and about in more formal settings in. So it's more of a casual piece that I wear. But I'm really happy with this fabric. It is the perfect knit fabric for this sort of tighter knitted top. It is mostly cotton and a little bit of elastane, if I'm not mistaken, and it's got sort of a thicker feel to it, but it's not too thick. It's just really comfy. It's not too thin, not too thick, not too stretchy, and not too stiff. It has a good amount of elasticity, but it doesn't snap back onto your body, so the negative ease is still comfortable. And it's just perfect, and I love this color. So if you're looking for great knit fabric for a tighter knit top, this fabric is really great, and I'll link it below as well. So as I finished cutting the True Bias Zoe top out of this fabric, I had just enough fabric to get a Coralie Bigasson Eoleti, a short sleeve version out of the same fabric, and I am so happy that I did. This was one of my most worn summer pieces, mostly because I just love the fit and the shape of this pattern, and then also the fabric is just so comfortable to wear, and this color is gorgeous. And so I've made this before, but in a 3/4 length versions that I think I modified the sleeves. I think the sleeves are meant to be full length, but I modified them to be 3/4 lengths in navy blue, black, and white. And so this version is because I don't have a whole lot of t-shirts, and I wanted something short sleeved, and I didn't have enough fabric for long sleeves anyway. I'm really happy with this. I really love the neckline, the very balletic neckline of this pattern, and yeah, I will definitely be making more. But I will talk to you all about that in the next video when I show you my fall sewing plans, so not today. But I have plans with this pattern. So yeah, I'm really happy with the way this turned out, and I will definitely be making more. The next piece that I made turned out to be the star of the summer season, and this was the Seamwork Joss pants that I made in a vlog that you can check out. It's devoted entirely to this pattern, and it was a lot of fun to make because it was pretty easy and quick, and it is just so nice to wear. It is one of those versatile pieces that corresponds to a lot of different situations, I think, like hanging out at home, going to the grocery store really quickly, even going to the beach when it's kind of blustery out, or going for a walk. I love it, and I was really hesitant about it, both because of the fabric and the pattern. At first, I thought the fabric, because it is 100% linen fabric that I found at Sacré Coupon in this lovely Celadon green color. But I thought that it was perhaps a little bit too stiff and would be too itchy to wear. And then I was a little bit worried about the pattern because I don't make a lot of pants and I wanted to try it, but I wasn't sure about the wide leg fit. I wasn't sure if I would like that on me. So there were a lot of ifs, but I did like that it had an elasticated waist and that it had a high rise up to the natural waistline so that I could tuck a lot of tops into it, and it's a fit that I really like because I have a smaller waist and larger hips, and so pants tend to ride up anyway. And I wanted something casual and it's perfect. It is absolutely perfect. I am so happy with this make, and it was super easy, and at the time it was Seamwork's free pattern for the summertime. It's no longer free, but I'll link it below if you'd like to check it out. It's it was great. I'm really happy that I made this one. I made the size 0 graded to a size 4 at the hips. So the size 0 corresponds to my waist measurements, but the size 4 doesn't correspond to my hips. My hips are more of a size 6 in Seamwork sizes, but I saw that with the size 4, I still had, I think, 3.5 or 9 centimeters of ease at the hips, and that was enough for me. I didn't want a huge wide leg on me, and so I cut out the size 4 at the hips and just graded from a size 0 to a size 4. And it turned out to be absolutely perfect. I think that the length also works for me really well. I think that the pattern originally plans for the length to be shorter, like a little bit cropped above the ankle, but on me it hits at the ankle. And I checked this out after. This pattern, and I think Seamwork patterns in general, are drafted for a 5'8" model, and I'm 5'5". And so that means that these pants are longer, but I probably would have hemmed it there anyway, so I'm just glad that I got a deep hem out of that. I'm really happy with the way these fit. I have been wearing them all summer long, and so I will definitely need to make myself another pair of these next spring or summer, and I would highly recommend trying this pattern out if you are a beginner looking for an easy pants project to work on. I think in lots of different fabrics it could work with all different kinds of seasons as well. So not just summer and linen, but yeah, that was the best project that I finished this summer. The next project is actually 2 projects that I made of the same pattern, and it was the Sew Over It Rosy skirt that I made in 2 different ways. This pattern is free if you sign up for the Sew Over It newsletter, so I'll link it below as well if you'd like to check that out. And I made it in a broderie anglaise, how do you say that again? Eyelet fabric in white, and then also a striped fabric in a white and blue striped linen. And I won't go into too many details because there's a whole vlog about it and I go into much detail on that vlog. But basically this pattern is really versatile. It depends on what kind of fabric you pick for it, and I picked challenges. So the first was working with an eyelet fabric. I had never worked with an eyelet fabric before, and I had to figure out how to line this pattern because this pattern doesn't come with instructions on how to line. And so I had to figure that out. So the first one was an eyelet fabric that I bought from Rainbow Fabrics in Kilburn, London, when I was in London for work earlier this year. And then the second fabric, which was the striped blue and white linen, was from Fabric Godmother that I had shipped to my hotel when I was also in London in March. And so, yeah, the second one was even trickier because I added volume to the skirt so that it would match the volume of the sienna skirt, the Sew Over It sienna skirt that I had made previously and that I love. This pattern, which was interesting, even though there's less volume in the skirt, it has an elasticated back waistband, which makes it much easier to wear and much more comfortable to wear than the sienna skirt. So I wanted the same amount of volume, but with the rosy skirt elasticated waistband. And then this one I was playing around with the directions of the stripes, so making sure that the stripes matched up along the seams or along the waistband seam, things like that. And so yeah, it was a bit difficult, but I love the way these 2 turned out. I did get to wear them a little bit. They are a little bit more dressy and formal than everyday life, but especially when it was hot and I was home and trying to stay cool, I would wear the second linen one because it's so voluminous that it doesn't touch the body and it just keeps you cool. And then the second one I didn't wear as often because it's a little bit more dressy and fussy because it's white. But because it's white, it goes with a lot of my tops, and so I wore it with especially my new Brene top in the rose gold Japanese fabric. I'm really happy with both of them, and I highly recommend checking out that vlog if you're interested. The next project that I made was the Helen's Closet Donovan skirt, another one, I know, that I made in a white linen from Bubu Tissu. I think they're called, I think it's a fabric shop based in Germany, and so their website automatically translates into French when I go to their website from France. Anyway, I have never bought fabric from them before, but I am very satisfied with the quality of the linen fabrics that I purchased. I only made one project from them, but they seem to be really good quality, so I'll be checking out their collections in the future. Anyway, so this one, I'm not sure about it. In my previous versions, I'd made the size 6, and I decided to go up to size 8 because the size 8 corresponds a little bit better with my hip measurements. And I was worried about not having enough ease with this stiffer, thicker fabric. But I think that there's a little bit too much ease and that this stiffer, thicker fabric sort of emphasizes this extra ease at the hips. And so I might take it in. I think it sort of makes my bottom half look disproportionately large. It might just be me, but I didn't feel very comfortable wearing it. And so I'll have to see. But I could always just shorten the waistband a bit, like taking the elastic a bit. Maybe that's what's bothering me because it sort of sits lower on my hips rather than at my natural waist. And then, yeah, I might take it into the hips, but I'll have to see about the pocket placement. Anyway, that'll be for next summer if I decide to, but I did want to make a white version, and I'm happy with the idea of the project. I think that this fabric is just a little bit too thick for the Donovan skirt, so I wouldn't recommend such a thick linen, and yeah, I'll have to see how to make that work next summer. And then the next project I tried didn't turn out so well. And it was that I tried to make a zero waist skirt from Birgitte Helmersson's book, Zero Waist Patterns. And the shape of the skirt, when I had almost finished it, turned out to be a bit too avant-garde, or not quite to my taste. Not something that I would wear. And I made it out of this black and white gingham from Fabric Godmother in linen that was just absolutely lovely to work with. And yeah, it didn't work out for me. I think the shape was a little bit too angular, or a lot too angular for me, especially at the side. And I found the concept of the zero waist pattern really interesting, but in the end, really restrictive. A lot of people said maybe with a looser fabric it might work, and sure, but I still think that because of that shape, it would hang weirdly at the sides, like lower at the sides. But then I'm sure you could cut it off, but then it wouldn't be zero waist anymore. And I made it out of the same, almost the exact same kind of fabric as the sample in the book. And so I was really surprised at how it turned out. And in the end, I think it's the sizing. So these shapes are drawn directly onto the fabric based on your size. And so I think because I was making one of the smaller sizes, there was a more extreme diagonal line to use up the entire width of the fabric, and perhaps with a larger size the diagonal wouldn't be as extreme, but I'm not sure. In any case, I might make another pattern from this book, but in the end I ended up unpicking this skirt completely to reuse the fabric, and I made another Helen's Closet Donovan skirt. I made this skirt in a size 8 as well, and I think that perhaps it's the size 8 that doesn't work for me. Maybe it's just too much fabric, because I also find that this one's a little bit big on me, but it's less noticeable than the white linen fabric because this fabric's not as thick and stiff. But I did get to wear this quite a lot this summer, and it's a very practical skirt to wear around the house especially, and so I'm really happy that I was able to salvage this fabric. That was scary for a little while, but I ended up making it work. My very last summer sewing project was the Seamwork Loretta top that I made in a vlog, if you'd like to check that out, the very last video that came out before this one. And that was a bit of a late project for the season. It was already the beginning of September when I made that, and I remember looking out the window and seeing it rain and thinking, I will wear this. And I did. In Biarritz. I brought it with me and I was able to wear it at least twice, which was great. So I'm really happy that I made that one. And it was a bit of a challenge. So this is Nani Iro fabric that is composed of mostly cotton and a little bit of silk. And I bought it while I was on my honeymoon in Japan last year in 2024 with my husband. And we went to Fukuoka in Kyushu and to the store Torayamu in Fukuoka, which is a big fabric and crafts store, and I would highly recommend checking it out if you are in Fukuoka. I will link the address below if you're interested. And what was complicated about this one is that this pattern calls for 2 meters of fabric, and I only had 1. And then the fabric that I had was a bit narrower. I think it was 120 centimeters instead of 145 or 150 centimeters as usual. or standard. And so I really wanted to make this top anyway, even though I didn't have enough fabric. And so I ended up modifying it quite a bit so that it would fit, but I will let you check out the video all about it because I go into much detail. And in the end, I can assure you, I made it work. So I'm really happy with the way that this turned out. There's less volume in the sleeves, and I did have to fiddle with the neckline a bit and shorten the elastic in the neckline to make it fit a little bit better around the shoulders. But in the end, I think it looks really, really good. I think it looks very different from my original version of the Loretta top that I made in a lightweight white embroidered cotton. And I think there's a little bit less volume in this new version because the fabric is smoother and not as stiff, so it doesn't hold the volume as stiffly. But I love this version. I'm really, really happy that I chose this pattern for this fabric because I really wanted to take advantage of the really beautiful flowers that seem to be painted onto this fabric. And because they're so widely spaced, I wanted something voluminous and gathered that would sort of bring them closer together so that I didn't have to cut any of them out while I was making this top. And I think I succeeded, and I'm really, really happy with this. And I can't wait to wear it more next spring and summer. I'm really happy with the way this one turned out. And then I did a little bit of embroidery and cross-stitching, so I continue working on this bookmark, this cross-stitched bookmark. It's a DMC and Louvre collaboration bookmark, and it came in a kit, and it's peonies, and I love the colors, but I haven't really been working on it lately. I go through phases where I really, really want to cross stitch and then I really, really don't want to. And currently I am more focused on sewing and knitting, and so I will put this aside until I work on it some more. But I think that's okay. I like having little projects like this to work on when I feel like it. And I think it'll be practical as a bookmark after. And then I had 2 more Japanese kogenzashi embroidery classes, and I learned how to make the kurumi no kara, which is black walnut, this design. They're getting more and more complicated as we advance. And then I also learned how to make the uroko pattern, which is fish scales, and it's supposed to bring good luck. This is so much fun to learn, I think. I'm not sure how I'll use these, but I will use them once I learn how to put them together. And there are many more to learn. I have another session coming up very soon, so it's just something in addition to my sewing practice, and I'd like to learn how to embellish my sewing projects better or work on accessories, and I find embroidery really relaxing. So yeah, I will continue to do this, and I take the classes with the Association Tarashine here in Paris, and it is an independent Japanese professor and expert of Japanese fiber arts who teaches this class, and then she teaches all kinds of other classes as well. So I'll link that below if you're interested and if you're in the Paris area looking to learn more about Japanese fiber arts. And then for knitting, I'm still working on my Drea Renee Knits Hey Sailor top or cardigan, and I've just finished doing most of the body, I think. Now I'm working on the back left yoke, and I think I'm not even halfway done. This project, I actually ended up putting it down towards the beginning of May and not picking it up again until the end of August because I was just not in the mood for knitting and I wanted to sew instead. But I think that's fine. It'll save me money because knitting is expensive. And yeah, I think that I might put this down and pick it up again in the spring or late winter, because if I finish it now or in the next month or so, it'll be too cool to wear it and not quite the right colors, and I'm starting to crave warmer knit projects. But yeah, I'm fascinated with the construction of this mosaic pattern, and I'm learning how to work with 2 colors at once and how to carry colors and all that, and it's a pretty easy beginner sort of color work pattern. And I've now gotten into the rhythm of making this pattern, so now it's pretty relaxing and I don't have to think about it too much, or I don't have to refer back to the instructions too often. So yeah, it's become a project that I really enjoy working on, and it's sort of awoken a passion for color work, and I'm excited to explore more color work projects further after this one. So those are all of my summer makes, except I do have one extra make that I could talk about, and it is my plants. So this summer I decided to try and grow cut flowers in pots in my garden, and it didn't go so well. I think that my pots were too shallow, or the seedlings didn't get hardened enough, and so what did grow ended up being really spindly and weak, and most of them didn't flower. So oh well, I've learned for next time. But I did get, for example, this bouquet is not homegrown. I live within driving distance to a farm where you can pick your own fruits and veggies and flowers. And so I did that this weekend with my husband. I've got some dahlias here and statice and a few cosmoses. And this one, this pink one you see here, this one's mine from my garden. So I got about, I think there's another one here too. Yeah, I got about 5 pink cosmoses and a few snapdragons, a little bit of statice, but certainly not as big and beautiful as these from the farm. And lots of paniculum, or whatever it's called, that grass, that really lovely grass. But I am not discouraged. It's just been a learning experience. So next year I will do even more. I'm even excited for, not the fall, but but for February to come around again so I can start new seedlings. And it's just going to be a challenge that might take me a few years to master. If you have any YouTube channels for gardening at home, especially with a small garden and pots, do not hesitate to link them below. It's becoming a new passion of mine. And I'm excited to see where this takes me, but I won't bother you with that anymore. This isn't sewing. This isn't fiber arts. So, but yeah, that was a summer accomplishment of mine, and I was very, very proud of the 10 to 15 blooms that I did get out of the hundreds of seedlings that I nurtured. But they're my babies, and I'm proud of them. So that was a lovely project that I endeavored on this summer as well. So there you have it. Those are all of these summer projects that I worked on or completed this season. Let me know in the comments what your favorite make was this season, or the garment you wore the most, or your best accomplishment this season if you didn't get to making, which is absolutely fine as well. I'd love to know. I have linked in the description below all of the patterns I've mentioned in this video, as well as any of the fabric that I talked about if it's still available, if you'd like to check that out, as well as all kinds of stuff in the descriptions. Don't hesitate to check the description out. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you very soon with my fall plans because I have many. Thank you for watching, and I hope you're doing well. Take care, and bye-bye.